Miss your old familiar friends, but waiting just around the bend. Everywhere you look, there's a hole, there's a
Okay, we'll start with this. Dillian Whyte had this to say. He says, I bashed Tyson Fury in sparring, dropped him on multiple occasions. He was quoted as saying, well, me and Tyson Fury sparred, and I bashed him about, and I dropped him on multiple occasions. It's as simple as that. You know, he wants to sit around talking this and that, but if I'm such an easy fight, why is he not in any rush to fight me? He said before beating Wilder, when I beat Wilder, I'm gonna give Dillian Whyte his title shot after beating Wilder. He just talks rubbish, and I'm just sick and tired. Like I've said, credit to Fury on all the mental health stuff and all of that. You know, credit really due. He's done a great job. He's inspired a lot of people and stuff like that. But this here, with boxing, I'm not going to sit here and play the sympathy card. He's got the belt. I want to fight him. So I don't care about all that. This is war. Let's go. Tyson Fury can tell you guys, I'm not one for going around shouting sparring stories, but Tyson Fury can tell you guys what happened. But I'm not one that's, oh, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. Listen, you know, but he's the one who comes out and said he beat me up in the gym and stuff like that. I can tell you now, that didn't happen. You know that didn't happen. You know. I don't like telling sparring stories, but people in the grapevine know. People in the game know. They know about me.
There is a growing feud between Tyson Fury, the WBC champion, and Dillian Whyte, the WBC's interim champion. And reconciliation is an eventuality. Tyson Fury, for all intents and purposes, should be moving on from the Deontay Wilder rubber match into the undisputed title fight with Anthony Joshua. The issue, however, is Dillian Whyte stands in his way.
There's no love lost between these two guys. This feud between them is becoming more and more of a thing. Among the many bobs traded between the two in recent memory, Dillian Whyte says, come on, Tyson Fury, you stole my mandatory fight. Are you a king or a coward like Deontay Wilder? Let's fight. I'm ready to go. Tyson Fury says, funny how everyone wants to fight during the COVID-19 when there are no sporting events happening. Also, I have a contracted fight with Deontay Wilder first. And when I win that, I'll have the fight with AJ, as undisputed comes before mandatories. Happy hunting! I think that there is room for criticism on both sides of this argument. I mean, you'll notice that Dillian Whyte says that he's not one for telling gym stories, sparring stories. But the same kind of stories he's sitting here telling you about Tyson Fury are the same kind of stories he was sitting here telling you about Deontay Wilder and Vladimir Klitschko, that he saw it happen. He was there and he witnessed it. Now, granted, he's not telling a gym story about something that he did, but it still is a gym story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I don't doubt that what Dillian Whyte is saying might be true. Maybe he did get the best of Tyson Fury in sparring. Maybe he did.
Maybe.
But that's sparring, okay? There's no shortage of sparring stories out there that the boxing community may or may not be aware of. And it's not what happens in sparring that counts. It's what happens under the hot lights that counts. So there is room to critique Dillian Whyte a bit for what he's saying. In the case of Tyson Fury, he's being rather disingenuous as well. You see, he's trying to make it seem like the only reason Dillian Whyte is mouthing off is because of the COVID-19 pandemic and how, everything's shut down right now. And yeah, everything is shut down right now, but that's not why Dillian Whyte is calling you out. He was calling you out before everything got shut down. As a matter of fact, the WBC ordered you two guys to fight, and you're the one that walked away. You're the one that pulled out. You passed on that fight. And you passed on that fight to fight who exactly? Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin? I mean, you'll excuse me for saying so, that at this time, Dillian Whyte was a more proven guy, a more world-level guy, tested guy, battle-tested guy than either one of those two guys. That needs to be reconciled. Essentially, the way this breaks down, Dillian Whyte actually does have a valid reason to be upset, a valid reason to have grown impatient with Tyson Fury, and he's about to have another. Tyson Fury will have fought Deontay Wilder count them 3 times, and all the while, Dillian Whyte has sat in the number 1 spot the whole time. And even after Tyson Fury takes care of what business he has left with Deontay Wilder, if he wins the fight, there's still no guarantee that Whyte gets his title shot because Tyson Fury means to go into the undisputed title fight with Anthony Joshua thereafter. So if you're Dillian Whyte, this is gonna get you upset.
Yeah.
Oh, me and you, the boxing fans.
Fuck it.
Doesn't bother us at all because that's what we want to see. We want to see one face, one name, one champion with all the belts. But if you're Dillian Whyte and you've worked yourself up to this point,
You're pissed.
if you're sitting where he is sitting, yeah, you're gonna be upset.
You're not expecting him to be okay with this, are you?
And the more of these exchanges between Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury we see, the more difficult Dillian Whyte may become to deal with if Tyson Fury makes it past Deontay Wilder. Dillian Whyte may so choose to exploit the situation.
Capitalize.
And it's going to be Top Rank that has to flip the bill because it's Top Rank's Tyson Fury that's in possession of the WBC title. Oh, granted, Eddie Hearn can do what he can to try to smooth things over, but the commitment, the obligation to satisfy the mandatory, that rests with Tyson Fury. And Top Rank's going to have to deal with that.
It's on them.
Top Rank, who's really not one for giving things away. I mean, you see their stance on paying Deontay Wilder step-aside money. What do you think their stance on paying Dillian Whyte step-aside money is going to be? We know that Eddie Hearn has made a lot of public statements in reference to the Joshua versus Fury fight. He seems committed to making it. But how is he to make it when one of his own guys, more or less, is standing in the way? What will Eddie Hearn do once it comes time to pay the piper? Once it comes time to decide what's next? If Tyson Fury beats Deontay Wilder again, and we're at the precipice of the undisputed heavyweight title fight that we've been waiting for such a long time, what will Eddie Hearn do? What is he prepared to do to smooth things over with Dillian Whyte? Because rest assured, smoothing over, they're going to need a lot of that.
They are.
We've been assuming that when the time comes, Dillian Whyte will simply step aside. He will be made an offer to step aside and he will accept it. But what if he doesn't want step-aside money? What if he wants his title shot? What if an offer is made to him, but he doesn't like it? We know the Top Rank, they're penny pinchers over there. They're not in the business of simply giving away millions upon millions of dollars, and I've no doubts that might be what it takes to get Dillian Whyte to sit this one out.
You think?
We've been assuming that the transition would go rather smoothly between, Tyson Fury fighting Wilder for a third time, then going straight into an Anthony Joshua fight. This is what we've been assuming. But the longer this feud goes on, the more of a potential problem Dillian Whyte could become. I mean, it could definitely turn out to be a very lucrative, financially beneficial situation for Dillian. But what if Dillian decides to take things personal and says, no, I don't want the step-aside money. I want the title shot. It's just something to think about. I mean, Tyson Fury's not wrong. Unifications do trump mandatories, but in order for that situation to come into being, the guy's got to be willing to step aside. Dillian Whyte has to be willing to step aside. So what happens if he's unwilling? Moving on. In other news, Guillermo Rigondeaux vows to be pound for pound at 118, then back to
What?
122.
Yeah, good luck with that shit.
Rigondeaux has been out of the ring since February when he captured the vacant WBA regular bantamweight title with a 12-round decision over Liborio Solis. The super WBA champion at the weight is Naoya Inoue. I was pound for pound champion at 122. I'm going to be the best pound for pound in the 118-pound division, and then I'm going to go up again for 122, Rigondeaux said. According to George Ebro, so I'm not done yet. It's now that I start. We're not done. Now we start. The Jackal is not finished. Now it starts. I'm still a champion at 119. I'm here. I keep making history. I'm a 3-time world champion, 2 at 122 and 1 at 118. Yeah, only if you count secondary titles.
Oh.
Because that's the kind of belt that Guillermo Rigondeaux is in possession of right now. A secondary title, the primary title, the main one, the one that can be unified with that of a rival organization's. That title sits with Naoya Inoue.
No shit.
The idea that Guillermo Rigondeaux is making a world title run, not just at 118, but 122 pounds, it's admirable, it's ambitious, it's definitely ambitious for a man Guillermo Rigondeaux's age, because he's 39 years old, and as I always say, those little guys down there at those lighter weights, they don't age like wine, they age like fruit. It's admirable that this is a goal that Guillermo has set for himself, but it's not the least bit realistic. Not based on how he looked with Julio Ceja, and certainly not based on how he looked against Liborio Solis. Those two performances, They were very different.
The implementation was different.
With one thing in common.
What?
One constant. You know, in the Julio Ceja fight, Guillermo chose to bang in the booth. Something you don't expect of a fighter who's been so renowned for his defensive prowess over the years. He chose to trade punches deep in the pocket, on the inside. Whereas with Liborio Solis, he chose to do the opposite. He chose to box from the outside, sticking and moving, being very economic, being very judicious, not being a glutton for punishment in all the ways he was in the Ceja fight. And even though the aesthetic of both these matches was very different, and Guillermo's overall implementation in both of these matches was very different, the constant is that Guillermo looked his age. I didn't see much in and out game in either of those fights. In one fight, he's deep in the pocket, doesn't seem to be able to get on the outside of this guy.
Nope.
Box him safely, bouncing in and out of range at will, the way he did with Amagasa, the way he did with Nonito Donaire.
Way back when.
He didn't appear to be doing this with Julio Ceja, whereas with Liborio Solis,
Well,
was on the outside, and he didn't seem to want to spend much time on the inside. One might be left to wonder if it's because Rigo's legs aren't what they used to be. They're not quite under him the way they were years ago, that he doesn't have the in and out game that he used to have before because his legs are gone. It's almost as if Rigo's reflexes,
or dull.
his agility, him being fleet of foot and as nimble as he used to be, is a thing of the past. These are no longer things he possesses as a fighter, a 39-year-old fighter, which is expected. I mean, I'm not holding it against him. We're all getting older. But as far as Rigo's in and out game, what was his in and out game, I don't think he's got it anymore. I don't think he has the luxury of alternating between fighting on the outside and fighting on the inside in the midst of a fight, as his reflexes are now dull, 39 years old. They're sapped from years as an amateur fighter and years as a professional fighter. Thus, he doesn't have the luxury of bouncing in and out of range.
Same way you used to.
These days, it's either or. Rigo just doesn't have the luxury of alternating between boxing from the outside or banging on the inside. It's one or the other. Think about the landscape at 118 pounds, the landscape at 122, what challenges he would have to face in order to become a full-fledged world champion in these weight classes, and I just don't see it.
I'm sorry.
And it's not just because of how good the fighters are in retrospect with where Rigo is in his career, but it's also the politics. You're talking about fighting Naoya Inoue, who's a top-rank guy, because the PBC and Top Rank, they're bosom buddies, right?
Right.
They're always in a hurry to make fights with each other's fighters, right?
Right.
In truth, while there might have been some logic, some hierarchy of thought that went into Rigo dropping from 122 down to 118, at this point, he might actually be wasting his own time, and his best bet to get his shot at a world title would be to go back up to 122 and have a fight with Ray Vargas, who's on the same side of the street as him. I mean, might be waiting a long time to get himself a Naoya Inoue fight, because Naoya's plan is to unify, and Rigo doesn't actually have a belt for Naoya to win and thereby unify with. At this point, at 39 years old, given the state of the division, what fighters are there, what they're capable of, in unison with the politics of boxing, Rigo might be wasting his own time continuing a campaign at 118 pounds. Might as well abandon that campaign at 118 and just go back up to 122, where he can fight Ray Vargas and deal with less politics. And finally, Steve Kim posted this via Twitter, and it reads, spoke to IBF 130-pound titleist Joseph Diaz. Says that if the quartet of himself, Oscar Valdez, Leo Santa Cruz, and Abner Mares don't tussle in the next couple of years, he'd be f***ing pissed. As of now, only Santa Cruz and Mares have fought.
2 times.
I can tell you this much. A Jojo Diaz versus Oscar Valdez fight, that's not off the table. That's possible. The relationship exists between Top Rank and Matchroom that could see a fight like that happening somewhere down the line. Perhaps not in the near future, as Oscar Valdez, he's spoken for. You know, Oscar Valdez is supposed to be fighting Miguel Bachelt
That's suicide mission.
in the near future. And thereafter, perhaps we could one day see an Oscar Valdez versus Jojo Diaz, though I do imagine it would be some time thereafter, as I don't think that fight's going to go very well for Oscar. And even a fight between Jojo Diaz and Miguel Bachelt, that's not off the table either, because I reiterate, the relationship exists between Top Rank and Matchroom that could perhaps see that kind of a unification match happening between the WBC 130-pound champion and the IBF's 130-pound champion. It's possible, at least more possible than anything involving them and Leo Santa Cruz. What the near future holds for Leo Santa Cruz is no mystery. It's a Gervonta Davis fight. And thereafter, regardless of what happens, I don't think that Leo's gonna unify with any one of these two guys. I don't.
Sorry.
We all know why. The politics of boxing, folks.
And Leo's not interested.
Let me tell you something. For years now, Leo Santa Cruz was on the same side of the street as Gary Russell. He wasn't interested in unifying with that guy. So if Leo's not interested in unifying with another world champion on the same side of the street as him, what are the odds he's going to be interested in unifying with any one of these guys? Leo lies safely tucked away behind Al Heyman's skirt, and he prefers to keep things that way.
Yeah.
Leo isn't the kind of ambitious legacy fighter that wants to establish himself as the authority in a given weight class. That's what we've been seeing over the years, and I don't think it's about to change. Oh, granted that Leo's accomplished, in a manner of speaking. He is a 4-division champion, but he's a 4-division champion who's been on the path of least resistance for some time now, and I don't think he's going to take a detour. I don't see any excursions in the near future, aside from the Gervonta Davis fight, but even that fight has its angle. The fight's going to be at 130 pounds, where Leo is the WBA champion, and where perhaps Gervonta Davis will be drained enough, gaunt enough, that it will affect his performance. Bottom line, I don't see Leo fighting any of these other guys. I don't. Now, Abner Mares.
That guy.
He's not spoken for. He doesn't have any real immediate plans in the near future, and he's not a world champion, so there shouldn't be any friction. In theory, there shouldn't be any problems with him fighting either Jojo Diaz for his IBF, or, Miguel Berchelt or Oscar Valdez, these other guys. There shouldn't be any problems. But in all likelihood, that's yet another fight we're not going to get to see. The tragedy here is, you can mix and match any one of these names. Oscar Valdez versus Leo Santa Cruz, or Leo Santa Cruz versus Jojo Diaz, or Jojo Diaz versus Oscar Valdez.
Keep going.
Or Jojo Diaz versus Abner Mares, or Abner Mares versus Oscar Valdez. You can mix and match the names, you'd get a great fight every single time. And the fan reaction to these fights,
Over there out west or the southwest.
they would get a warm reception from the Mexican-American boxing fans. There's actually a market for every single one of these fights. Every last one of them. But that's the real tragedy, and these are the consequences, the collateral damage that the politics of boxing create for the boxing fan. That there are good fighters out there, very good fighters, and there are good fights to be made. But
They won't happen.
when the powers that be are only concerned with their own best interests, instead of delivering the very best product, the very best fights in this instance, to the boxing fans, this is what happens. And you got fighters like Leo Santa Cruz that, they're not all that interested in establishing themselves as the very best and brightest fighters in the sport anyway. So, pardon my cynicism when I say that I don't expect very many, if any, of these fights to happen.